and welcome to the Rollwise podcast, the show that talks about things related to tabletop RPGs. Today, we thought we would dive into an interesting post that we had seen on Reddit. That was somebody was sharing some data that they had kind of aggregated about Kickstarter and kind of how the year 2024 went for Kickstarters. And I know we talked about this a little bit, but it's nice that somebody actually dove into the projects a little bit and kind of got some interesting facts about it. So I thought that this was a good topic to kind of discuss, see what this may say for trends about the industry. And of course, you could either take this as a doomer thing or you could take it very optimistically. Your choice. Your choice. But 2024 was pretty interesting, at least in the fact that, and we'll probably be talking about this for years, is that the Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere raised what? 15 million, over 15 million.
Yeah, 14, 15 million, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was and of course earned the title of highest funded tabletop RPG on Kickstarter, which is fantastic, considering that probably a lot of the people that were funding it don't even play tabletop RPGs.
Right.
If you look at previous top funding projects and all that stuff, that was that just like, other than like I think maybe a couple, it was a stretch. It was a stretch out there, which was pretty cool. So I think that it kind of is a good start, because when we looked at tabletop RPGs in 2024 and like what funded really well and everything like that, what was your biggest standout campaign that you recall?
Oof.
Like, you mean the one where I'm excited the most for, or?
Well, no, I guess maybe most excited about, or maybe largest campaign you recall.
Because I mean, you can't really say largest campaign because you already talked about it. Like,
yeah, it's Cosmere.
Cosmere is going to be the one that stands out. Like when you say
that's fair.
largest. I mean, games that I'm excited about are like the Coriolis Kickstarter. I'm excited about that. Electric State, I was really excited about, which I guess that wasn't funded last year, but that delivered last year. Those sorts of games. I think those are the two biggest ones I can think of. They're the two that I look forward to the most. Broken Empires, I'm looking forward to that.
Jeff, what about you? What do you have any names that went out there?
I'm still excited for probably both Draw Steel and DC-20. I know that those are a little more mainstream and fantasy related, but
those are two big ones though. They were big.
Yeah, they both did surprisingly well, I thought. I'm with Brent. I'm interested in Coriolis. I didn't back it like he did, but that was one that I remember looking at and being excited about. Yeah, those would probably be.
Ars Magica did really well.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. Be interested when I get that.
Oh, and one thing I wanted to point out is that this is the data just for Kickstarter. The person who did all this, Hans Messersmith, at least from RPGgeek.com, that was the person who put this all together. So I guess first,
the article's up. The article's up at RPG.com. RPGgeek.com.
Yep. And so, first of all, we should probably thank them for doing the hard work and labor that we're looking at here to kind of see some of these things, but also, kind of like talking about their observations and what they saw from the data, because I think they've made some pretty interesting observations to see. But I would have to agree. I'd say that, when I looked at the top 10 overall funded Kickstarters in 2024, we did have a chance to play Cosmere, Terry Pratchett's Discworld. We played DC-20. And of course, the ones that you guys had done here. I think between us, like all the different games that we had funded, the one that I really was interested in, and I think they just put out another update, is Crescent Chimera did Astro Prisma. I'm really excited to get my hands on the book for that. Wasn't necessarily the hugest Kickstarter, but it actually broke the top 10 for RPGs, which was kind of cool to see that one got a lot of traction.
It's really interesting about that one that it started out as a solo game. To me, like that's what I think is really interesting about that one, is it started wasn't the final stretch goal making it a multiplayer game. Like it was pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
I mean, so that really points out like how interested people are in solo games, which I think is interesting because it did very well.
No, I think that's cool.
Yeah, and I thought that, because I mean it was definitely basically a solo it was a solo game to start off with, but I think that
yeah, it was I remember it was a stretch goal towards the end.
Creative fund. Yeah, I thought that was in there as well. I mostly wanted to play this as a solo thing just because I really like the idea of it, but I'm really interested to see if there's a way to the co-op rules. You will be able to play Astral Prism with other players. Co-op rules will be included in the core book. So that's fantastic that opportunity is there. But I mean, this is the game that when I looked at the art, like it didn't take me very long to go, okay, yep, this is the game. This is my people's. Let me play. So that was something I was very, very, very excited about. And I have to say though, but what's interesting between the top 10 and funded RPGs on Kickstarter in 2024 is Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, hits 4.5 million or 14.5 million. Neopets, the tabletop role-playing game, official tabletop RPG, which I didn't know even came out. Obviously, I would have backed that.
Obviously.
Neopets. I don't even remember if you guys did you guys ever do anything with Neopets?
I remember the name Neopets, but I don't remember what they were.
My kids did a little bit, but not a lot of the card game.
Oh, there was a card game. I just remember being on the computer.
No, there was a CCG for a hot minute.
Oh Jesus! I just remember being on the computer and like remember this wheel turning and just like, you missed. Try again tomorrow. Like all these stupid computer games. But the discrepancy between that is that I mean, it basically came in at 394,000. So a little under 400,000 for where it landed, and that rounds out the top 10 at number 10. So that's a huge difference between the top and the bottom there.
No, it is. The Cosmere broke the curve.
Well, and licensed projects have a tendency to make more money because you do tap into that non role playing sort of people sometimes. And Cosmere, like Brandon Sanderson, knows how to do that across everything. It seems.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, he rallies his fans like almost no one else. It's impressive.
Yeah. And so some discussion points they had about the data was that 2024 saw the greatest number of projects, 1,892, beating the previous record in 2023 at 1,754. 2024 had the second largest funding total ever at 64 million, beating the last year at 59 million, but not the record set in 2021 during the,
that is
the dark times.
Skewed a bit though by
Brandon
Cosmere funding for so much. Yeah. Like without Cosmere, it wouldn't have been higher than the year before.
And one of the things that I think is interesting is it being a higher total this year than 2023. Like the growth is what we discussed previously, where we just like, is our RPGs dead? That sort of like idea that we're past the golden age. I think there being a higher number of Kickstarter projects out there and funding means that probably that's not true at all. That projects and games of various types will continue. Creators and content will continue to grow, I think. Even though, like you said, I think before we started streaming, a lot of the content was 5e small projects.
Yeah, well, I'm still surprised by how much 5e stuff was on there because am I remembering right at Adventure Time they were going to do an original system and then they just made it 5e compatible?
I don't actually know. We could check though.
I thought they did. It's a whether they did or not. I just there was a decent amount of 5e stuff though in that top 10.
Well, I mean, if you're a content creator and you want to make some money, I think that's the easiest way to go.
It's got the largest built-in audience.
Yeah, you're gonna have that advantage of people being like, oh, looking up D&D and then seeing it at least.
Sure.
And with it being the widest, like the largest audience, like you're gonna get more people that may be interested and fund it. So I think it makes sense, especially with last year being the anniversary.
That's true. And last year, honestly, things were up in the air because like all of the rules weren't out for the new stuff. right? It was the original, the 2014 5e stuff that people
Yeah,
were writing
but
stuff for.
anything that they wrote is backwards compatible with the new edition.
Oh,
So
perfectly,
the
flawlessly,
new
seamlessly.
sorry, not new edition, new
Update. It's
year
just an
update.
Brent.
Errata, Big
Yep.
Book of Errata. That's what we should call it. We should just call it the D&D Big Book of Errata. That's what we should call it.
I like that a lot.
Well,
I'm sure somebody's going to hate it, but yeah.
Well, so I personally don't have a lot of connection to Adventure Time myself, but I thought the whole premise behind Adventure Time it was based on D&D, or the premise of D&D and all that kind of stuff, wasn't it? Or am I misremembering? Because
I think that's where they wound up.
Yeah.
I thought it was a D&D adventure that became a show, and now it's looping back into being a D&D product. That's the cyclical nature of inspiration nowadays.
Yeah.
We have a thing that was inspired by a thing. Now it's going to be produced as this other thing. That was the same as the first thing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, but that's kind of cool in itself, is that, like, I always remember that, like, hearing about the Dragonlance stuff that was a D&D adventure. There was also an anime that had roots in a gaming thing that they had done, The Record of Lotus War. I don't think you guys have ever heard of it, but my understanding is that it had, like, that the anime was born from a gaming journal that they had kept about how the players and everything like that approach all this stuff. And when you watch the anime and you have that lens, you're like, oh yeah, yep, there's a fighter, there's a priest, there's a mage, there's an angry dwarf, an angry elf, it's pretty fun there. Another thing I mentioned here on the topic of 5e is that number of 5e related projects continue to increase. There was 796 versus 656 last year. However, the value of 5e projects plummeted from 19 million this year versus 30 million the prior year. And what they say is that the large decrease in 5e funding compared to the increase in 5e projects can be partially explained by the large gap of what Pete could describe as dollar store projects placed on Kickstarter over the last year. 5e, or 50% of 5e projects last year had a funding goal of less than $500 compared to 2024, which was 41%, 2022, which is 28%. 2021, which is 18%. And so they say anecdotally, these projects often include AI generated art and are the 100x to add to your game type or small adventures modules.
Oh yeah. Like 100 tables that you can roll on for stuff.
Yeah. But, like, I think the worst part about that is that, like, I mean, so, and this is of course where you have that question, like, well, is it okay for people just to, like, go into DeepSeek, ChatGPT, or whatever the hot AI thing is, be like, hey, print me out a table of 100 random encounters, like 100 things that you can encounter in a bar, 100 things that you would encounter in a.
I mean, I think it's fine. In my opinion, it's fine. I'm sorry if somebody's not smart enough to notice that's what they're buying. I apologize. I feel like that's going to be obvious when you look at the product.
It should be.
I mean, and really, a book of tables, like why are you buying that anyways? You can probably find that online if you look hard. You give any modicum of attempt, or you can find 20 tables and put them into one table for yourself if you like. Yes, it's a little bit of prep work, but, like, I would be curious, are they saying that's how many funded, or just how many that's how they're like, I'd be curious how many of those actually funded over.
Well, they were saying these projects do fund at 86% of the 5e projects funded this year compared to 87 in 2023. So, well, I mean, I think the problem is that these funding goals are so low for a lot of them that, like, they can hit, and they basically say, like, okay, because they said they have a funding goal of less than $500,
right? And there's of less than $500, and also you're watering it down. Like, if there's 10 of those up, people aren't going to support all of them. So there's more Kickstarters, and they're just watering down the, like, overall product.
But the fact that so many funded this year, 86%, that means that a lot of people still got a lot of those projects. At least least put money into them. And I mean, if I was a game designer, or I was a person that was like needing a little extra income, and I had generated something that didn't take a lot of effort, I mean, if I'm not having to provide a physical product.
Yeah, if you can churn out like pamphlet games or small PDF games or supplements and make a couple $100 every month or every couple of months, like that's not, I mean, unfortunately, that's not a terrible thing, especially if you're struggling.
Yeah, I think what I would probably say though, and maybe
working that hustle.
Well, yeah, but maybe here's the question for you though: is that like, at what point does it just become this too many things out there where you can't find the good shit because there's just this tsunami of like everybody generating some small little piece of shit supplement that.
Well, I mean, you're there. I mean, you're there. I mean, this is it. But that's, but it's D&D pieces of shit. So, like, it just goes further to say, play other games, and you'll get better quality products a lot of times.
Yeah,
like, don't play the biggest, because the biggest is going to get people that feed off of that big audience. Like, that's just the way like business works. Like if you can attach yourself to a bigger name, you're going to get a lot of watered down products, I think, because you can sell it, because it's a D&D list of magical items for your cod piece. Like, oh, I need that for $5. I can get the whole thing for $5. I can get the digital copy for $5. I can get the physical copy in a hastily stapled together pamphlet for $10. I'm in. Like,
you really like cod pieces, though, to be fair.
That's the advantage of a fantasy setting. You can wear a cod piece and get away with
it. Sorry, my apologies.
It's my magical cod piece of running fast.
I don't think that's how that works, but it's magic. Who cares? So
it's in the third table in my pamphlet.
Magical cod piece of giant strength.
Oh, that one makes perfect sense. It's like a weightlifting belt at that point.
Yeah. Well, it was a girdle in the other books. I'm just, making it, appropriate. Anyways, but yeah, like, I mean, that's why, is because, it's D&D. I kind of support. Oh, it's D&D and it's cheap. Sure, I'll throw $5 or $10 their way.
Sure.
Because if it's less than 500, like if it's less than 500, their levels of support are probably not gigantic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I would say that and I don't know what to say about it, because it's honestly, it is just, it's like, how do you as an indie creator compete because like, somebody puts their heart and soul, they get all the art, they do all that kind of stuff. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you get, how do you separate yourself from how do you separate signal and noise, or wheat and chaff, or whatever the hell you want to say? I think that takes marketing, that takes buzz, that takes like, because when you saw Shadow Dark, like, that didn't, like, nobody had heard about Shadow Dark, and all of a sudden it was like, whoop, $2 million.
But again, Shadow Dark,
she was a relatively successful adventure designer prior to that.
But what you have to remember is Shadow Dark hit at like the perfect time after the OGL thing. Like, people wanted to jump off the boat, like, and she just, like, I think it went up the next month or something like that, and people are like, I'm ready for a different game. And I think the way to distinguish yourself is either make it system agnostic. Here's a table for your, like, I think I bought one that was like 100 sci-fi situations you can put in any game or something like that, just because I was kind of interested.
Sure.
He wasn't $500. He had a larger budget than that. But like, yeah, like, I mean, the way to distinguish yourself is to don't do it for D&D if you want to distinguish yourself. But the risk of that is you're probably not gonna, you might not fund because it's not D&D.
That's like, true.
If you want to, like, you can be a small, like, it's that, like, it's a big pond, and if you're I don't mean this to be insulting as it's going to sound, but like, if you're attached to the big fish, you're gonna get a lot fatter than the people that aren't. Like, if you're the parasite that's attached to the big fish, you're gonna get a lot more nutrients than the ones that aren't. So, I mean, that's the nature of D&D, is it's the big fish swimming around in the pond. So more things are going to attach to it than that, and they're going to fund just from being small and being D&D.
Yeah. Well, it is something that I would say that compared to what I've seen in the past, at least. I mean, people have always looked for tables and all that stuff. It just surprises me that, as you said, why not just find it online? Or what was that website that we went to recently? The the dark
Grim, was it Grim?
Glumdark.
Glumdark, that's it. That was it.
That's it. My memory is serving me so well these days. Glumdark, I mean, that was a great resource for people that wanted to add a certain type of
tables,
random element to their all that kind of stuff. And so it's interesting to see that.
And they put a Kickstarter collecting all of their stuff into a book if you would like to buy it. So I mean,
a cool looking book, at least.
Well, right. They put effort into it, which if it's less than $500, I would contend that maybe you didn't put as much work into it. I'm not trying to insult anybody. I am, but I'm not trying to. But if it's less than $500, like you're not, you can't, it's either all digital, or it's like you have one of the bookbinding staplers and you're sending out a pamphlet of your tables, because it's not going to be professionally bound or printed, I don't think. So,
Jeff, what do you think? Like in this case, now that we're going to take Cosmere out of 2025's data, and kind of looking at projects upcoming and everything like that, does 2025 look like it's going to be on a downward trend, or do you think like there's something that's going to kind of buoy the numbers up?
I mean, there will be some projects that surprise us, right? I mean, if you go back and look at the past year's data, there's always a couple of projects that come out and you go, how did that make $2 million? And I'm not trying to insult the projects, but they just weren't. They like DC-20 last year. Like I was super happy for Dungeon Coach, right? But I did in no way, shape, or form. If I'd have been a betting person, would I have gone over 2 million? Is what he's going to do, and more power to him. So I think there'll be some things that surprise us, but my guess would be is that 2025 would be a down year in terms of raw dollars.
But I think there's going to be more projects. I think there's going to be more creators, and I think
there probably will be.
Continue to be.
Part of it is Dungeons and Dragons publishing their books finally, right? People will be writing more supplements. I mean, we're going to see. We've talked about Kobold Press, right? A lot of what they do bolts onto Tales of the Valiant, but it also will bolt onto 5e pretty seamlessly. And they do some really nice work. Like I think we'll see some more stuff like that.
And I think you'll see Kickstarters from stuff that have funded in the last years from bigger companies, putting out new books and expansions and stuff like that. Like like off stream, we were talking about the Cult Kickstarter that just went up, the expansions that they're putting up. Like they're doing really well so far.
Yeah, that's Divinity Lost, right?
Yeah, and Helmgast is a pretty big press. And they're gonna probably
they're already up to $250,000. Good for them.
Yeah, so I mean, some of those games that have funded in the past year are probably going to be like the minute that Draw Steel is out, I'm sure they're working on new stuff to put on Kickstarter, because that's what he was doing with the 5e stuff, right? Was he was putting out expansion stuff for 5e, with Flea Mortals and stuff like that. So he's going to do the same. They're going to want to do the same thing with Draw Steel. They're going to have Draw Steel. It's going to come out, get it in your hands, and then they're going to put up another Kickstarter. They're going to be like, hey, buy this expansion to Draw Steel, or this, guide to Draw Steel, and then that'll be a new Kickstarter. I think that's so you're going to see that stuff happen this year, and I think there might be some big projects that come out regarding that as stuff funds from last year.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean it's an interesting point to consider that now that the newest round of D&D books are out, people are going to be creating stuff tailored to that, as well as these big projects, because DC-20 should be, I thought it was supposed to come out this year as well, and I don't know if he's going to have a lot of expansion, but it seems ripe for that type of extra effort for people. And if people have put out really generous licenses for these extra books, and it allows the community to really create content for it, I mean that's part of the winning strategy right there, in my opinion, is that make it so you protect your IP, so you're not just giving away your stuff, but also make it so that your community can get involved. And if your community starts making money as creators, even if it's a little on the side, they get excited about it too.
Well, one thing that Hasbro or TSR or whoever's running D&D at the time. I can't remember. It wasn't TSR. It was either it was Hasbro or Wizards. I don't know if Hasbro owned Wizards at the time. But one of the brilliant things that they did for a while is realize we don't make any money off of adventures. Like small splat book adventures don't make any money. So we'll just put out core books. We'll open the license enough to where people can write adventures. It's advertising for our books. We don't have to spend money on making these adventures for people. It gets the community involved. Like that was one of the most brilliant things that like Wizards did, is they made the community make adventures for them basically. And then sure, and then like Dungeon Forge takes a cut, right? I think Dungeon Forge like takes a cut. And that was originally where they did it. So I mean, yeah, if you can do that with your IP, that's the brilliant thing to do. Engage the community, have them write adventures for you. Even if you don't take a cut, like people have to buy your core book to run their game, right?
Well, they need to have access to it, right? Yeah. Or know the rules.
Yeah. Right. And what's also kind of
which means somebody has to buy the book. Somebody has to buy it. That's what we're gonna say here today on stream on this episode. Somebody has to buy the book.
Somebody has to get it.
Your GM most likely.
The person who wants to play the game the most typically buys them.
Correct. Man, I'd love to play that game. Oh, that means I have to run it.
Pretty much. Exactly. But I guess because I was actually thinking about it as I asked that question earlier, because it seems like, one of the things that helped, increase D&D's popularity was the fact that there was the dark times a couple years back, but also Stranger Things had come out and kind of really rekindled people's stuff. And I think this year Stranger Things has got season 5, its final season coming out. But do you think that that's going to be enough to help with a bump in D&D, or do you think that that's...
You mean the show with the real Vecna in it?
You mean the show with the 36-year-old kids?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know what time period this season's supposed to take place, and I haven't read that much about it, but I've seen that it's supposed to come out.
The Hollywood age kids, the Hollywood age teens kids that are all really 20. Yeah, it is supposed to come out this year, and it'll have D&D names in it, I'm sure. So yeah, it'll probably make a splash again.
It should. Yeah, but I mean, it should. It's had a boost, and it's a good show. Like I'm making fun of the delays between seasons, but it doesn't mean the show isn't, well written.
Well, everybody had to make sure they got their medication now because they're all older. So they all had to make sure they were ready, prepared for the show.
Yeah, well, de-aging through CGI is probably a thing. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's probably a thing. But we'll see. I mean, I'm kind of excited to see how the show ends. At least the first season of that, I really, really enjoyed. Was that the same for all three of us, or did one of us?
I like Stranger Things.
I've only finished the first season, and I liked it. It just took me a while. I didn't love it the way some other people did.
I watched it late. Like I didn't watch it. Like I watched like all the last 4 seasons pretty much all at once because that's how late it was to the party. But I enjoyed it, and I like the characters well enough.
Yeah, because I thought I remembered you, Brent, hadn't seen it for the longest time, and so
you're correct. Yeah, I didn't watch it until, like I said, I didn't watch it until like the 4th season came out. Yeah, until like the 4th season came out.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I don't know. What's interesting to me is that like it feels like the projects that I'm seeing, or at least that I get visibility on, are really interesting projects that I really want to try. But I also just don't go browsing on Kickstarter or Backer Kit right now because it feels like when I do, I just get all over the place. So
honestly, I don't know who they are, but I know that they exist for board games. So I'm assuming that there's people that do this for role-playing games. Mm-hmm. There are people that do nothing but scour Backer Kit, GameFound, Kickstarter, and will talk to you about like probably on YouTube, maybe written, and list all kinds of stuff, and then you can make up your own mind, and you don't have to do the scouring. It saves a lot of time. And you can go, that sounds interesting. That sounds not my deal.
I trust fate to bring games to me that I want. But I think fate is called the algorithm now. So if the algo is like, oh, Brent should be interested in this, I'll give it a look. And there's probably a coin flip whether or not I'm going to be interested in it or not. I mean, that's how I found the cult I am on their mailing list, so never mind. But like that's how we found Broken Empires.
It's true. It's true.
It showed up. It started showing up in my algo on some social
but didn't
media.
somebody also mention it? I thought one of our.
I think they mentioned it after we talked about it a little bit. We mentioned it on a Kickstarter thing, and then we started looking at it more. But I had seen it before that.
Oh, I don't remember.
I didn't look because I was trying not to spend money on it, which I wound up doing after we talked about it. So shame on you, whoever mentioned it.
I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I don't remember anything. So, well, that's it. I mean, I think we could probably post a link to the work that they had done. It's just mostly numbers to kind of see how things break out and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of, it's neat in its own right to kind of see how the data plays out, but it will be kind of interesting to see how 2025 stacks up to 2024. And obviously, Brent is going to do his best to put all of his money back into the system, so that those numbers are as high as possible.
He has to top his funding spending from last year.
No, I don't. No, that's not the goal. And I was very upset when the Cult Kickstarter came out. I was like, damn it. Yeah. I didn't even make it a month into the year.
What are you talking about? It's February.
It started in January.
Oh, okay.
There's only four. No, it was Cult, but there's only 14 days left in Cult.
Well, it doesn't count until they take
out of 30. So. Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. Because I know that money's gone already. That's not a healthy way to think of it either. That money doesn't really count until it comes out.
Until it comes out, man. Still, you can still cancel your order. Is all I'm saying.
Until that's true.
You can still cancel your order.
That's true.
So I don't know if you guys got to the very end of that article though, but this was kind of interesting to see non-5e RPGs with at least 5 supplement projects. Old School Essentials was the top named one because they have a generic universal that had 192. Sure. But Old School Essentials at 57, Dungeon Crawl Classics at 36, Pathfinder, second edition at 33, Shadow Dark at 31, Morkborg at 31, and Savage Worlds at 26, and Dragonbane at 20, and Mothership at 17. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. That's good. I think that's healthy activity for those games, and a lot of those games are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think what an article like this does for me is it just kind of speaks to the fact that the creators are out there and they're still making products, and that indicates that there's still a healthy market out there. Like as long as creators are creating, it means that things are good. And then when when you worry about the bottom dropping out is when creators aren't creating even small projects anymore. Because that means something happened. There's been a disruption somewhere.
Yeah, if we were seeing the total dollars pledged dropping year after year, then I would say that the hobby is in decline.
Right. And we can say like you have to take Cosmere out of the total, but what you have to think is if people like if role-playing customers didn't spend money on Cosmere, they might have spent it on other things throughout the course of the year. So that money may have still been there.
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah, I mean, some of it was role-playing fans. Some of it was just Cosmere fans.
That's true.
That's where I'm having a hard time drawing a line on that one. But I get what you're saying. You're right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
People who budgeted stuff, people aren't me like throwing money at creators like, oh, this guy deserves it.
Some people do. I have backed a couple of things because somebody's putting out a good product, and into it.
Yeah, there's quite a few projects that I've supported just because I feel like the Sentience project, the one guy. There's 2 projects with that name. But the one that was the small press guy that made his game, like I felt like that book deserved it. It was interesting. It was a neat concept. He had actual art that people drew. Like he deserved somebody to support his game.
Yeah.
Distal
even
too.
Even though it was a game that you could easily go to the AI art as kind of a thematic thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I think that's it. If anybody who's made it this far into this talking about Kickstarter stuff wants to leave their own experiences, do they think that, 2025 is going to be a rough year in total dollars spent, smaller amount out there, or do they think it's going to be even better than before? I think there's compelling reasons that you can find for both. So let us know your thoughts.
Or if you're a creator and you want to talk about some of your stuff, feel free to limit in the comments. We'll definitely take a look.
Yeah, we like looking at stuff, and Brent loves opening his wallet, so we can't promise anything.
Brent doesn't love opening his
your
wallet.
Heart and soul into it. Brent will
he just will. He just will. He doesn't love it, but he will.
So let us know. Hit the comments. And so, Jeff, if they want to talk to us, we should probably
look on Blue Sky, Facebook, Threads, Twitter. We are at Rollwise. We can also be reached by email, rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
What else were you going to say, Mike?
I don't remember. I was going to say we could also talk about burp.
All right. Well, on that note, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there, everybody.
Thank you.
See ya.